Hi everyone, this is a recording of our introduction to our 200-hour yoga teacher training presentation. So what this presentation does is basically give you all the information you would need to have a think about whether you're going to do your yoga teacher training. And of course, then if you have any questions off the back of that, you can just drop me an email at teachertraining@soulsanctuarystudios.com and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So I hope you find this helpful. I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Okay, so here we go. This is the Yoga Teacher Training 200-hour Q&A session with myself, Laura Clayton. I'm the founder of Soul Sanctuary Studios. So I've had the studio for nearly 10 years now. We've been running teacher trainings for around 9 years. And obviously we offer both in-person teacher trainings and online teacher trainings. So this introduction is going to give you an overview of both of those styles of trainings and hopefully answer any questions you might have. So to get started, first of all, let's have a look at what we're going to run through today. So we're going to look at the course curriculum, course styles, course dates, and then FAQs and next steps. So really simple. And just to let you know that you can find all this information that I'm going through in our course guidebook, which is a PDF available to download from the website. So you can see the website is soulsanctuarystudios.com. And then if you click over to trainings, 200-hour yoga teacher training, and then you will see I've zoomed out there. But if you scroll down a little bit to course styles, you can download the PDF. Okay, so if you want to go over anything, it's there for you. So to start with, let's have a look at the course curriculum. So this is the Yoga Alliance globally approved certification process. So in order for you to be a qualified yoga teacher, it's a good idea to get qualified through a governing body. Now, there are lots of different governing bodies out there. Some of them are global, some of them are just country specific. But why we chose Yoga Alliance Global is so that you can teach anywhere in the world if you want to, but also because they have the most stringent qualification process. So it means that your course has to be of the highest quality. And this is what they ask for. So there has to be 100 hours of techniques, training, and practice. Okay, so analytical training on how to teach and practice the techniques and guided practice of the techniques themselves within yoga. And then teaching methodology. So principles of demonstration, observation, assisting, correcting, communication skills, etc. 25 hours on that. Anatomy and physiology, 20 hours on that. Lifestyle and ethics of yoga teachers, 30 hours. Practicum, so practice teaching, 10 hours. And then you'll notice there's some missing to make up the 200 hours. So what happens is then the course is free to brand basically the remaining hours as they like to style their teacher training. So I always say up front, and it's kind of written everywhere over the website, that our teacher training specializes in psychology, self-development, and also health as well. So the connection between yoga and well-being. So that's where we weight our extra hours. So depending on what style of training you're looking for, obviously, if you wanted something that was more anatomy based, we have to cover this core content. But if you have a particular interest in anything, then that's where the additional hours are going to go. Okay, so for example, if you're particularly passionate about anatomy or about Ashtanga or about cleansing techniques or chanting or whatever it might be, you might want to look for a training which specializes in that. But ours is more about psychology and, as I say, self-development, because a lot of people do these trainings not necessarily to teach yoga. They do it for themselves, for personal growth, to learn more about themselves, to help heal themselves, or to learn the tools to help others. And yoga, of course, is a huge part of that. And this is a yoga teacher training. But, as you'll learn through the training, yoga really is about uniting, reconnecting your body and your mind back together. And in many ways, yoga is psychology. One of the core principles of yoga is self-study. And so we're constantly learning about ourselves and how we think and where that comes from, and how can we step out of our own way to really live the life that we were born and put on this planet to do. So there's quite a lot of self-discovery within this training, as well as obviously becoming a highly qualified yoga teacher. So just so you understand what we have to cover from a Yoga Alliance principle, and then what we add on as Soul Sanctuary. And then you can have a look at the course syllabus. Okay, so this is very similar to what we've just discussed, but this is our personal syllabus. So obviously we cover anatomy, alignment, teaching language, and our language, actually, we're really proud of the way that we teach language. And we see that when we do other extra trainings, things like we do yin trainings, assistant trainings, lots of additional, what we call continued education. And we get lots of yoga teacher come to us who have been qualified through other schools, and they find that they really struggle with their language, especially when then going into continued education. And lots of our qualified teachers, explain our language process, and they all say, gosh, that sounds really, really helpful. So we're really proud of how we teach language, and that really is what makes you a really powerful and clear yoga teacher, which is, going to be the success of your classes. The style of sequence that you will learn is vinyasa. Okay, so it is a vinyasa yoga teacher training. Vinyasa means flow, so it means that each of your poses is connected to the next one. Okay, so it's a flowing sequence. You actually learn a 90-minute sequence. Okay, now don't let that scare you. Some people say, oh my goodness, I don't think I could ever do a 90-minute sequence. You don't actually have to practice the 90-minute sequence. It's there for you to learn, to memorize, basically so that you have the strongest backbone possible for your teaching. Because if we were to simply teach you a 30-minute hatha sequence, for example, where the poses didn't connect, it would be really difficult then to once you're qualified, go out and learn another 60 minutes of a sequence and make them connect. Yeah. Whereas it's much easier if you do all the work up front and you learn a 90-minute flowing sequence. It's really easy then to pick a couple of poses from that and make a 30-minute static sequence. So you don't have to teach 90 minutes, but you will have that as a really strong backbone going forward. And I think that's what makes our teachers particularly powerful. They come out of their training with that as their kind of baseline, and then they can obviously simplify it from there, but it just gives you a lot of confidence to start with. You will practice other styles of yoga. So just because we're a vinyasa training, I want you to be able to leave the training knowing exactly what other styles of yoga are. So for example, we practice Ashtanga, we practice Nidra, we practice Yin. There's also pregnancy yoga. Now, there are specialized courses which you can do in some subjects. So you won't come out of this training as a qualified pregnancy yoga teacher, okay, or a kids yoga teacher. But it is really important that you have an understanding of what that practice looks and feels like. So you'll experience it. But if you want to go on and specialize in those areas, then it's normal for you to do a Vinyasa 200-hour teacher training and then go and specialize in other areas such as Ashtanga or Nidra or Yin or pregnancy yoga or kids yoga or whatever you might do. And those are continued education courses. So your 200-hour training is really just your baseline. It's like the first building block of your yoga teacher training journey, and that's why we start from scratch with all the poses. That's what's expected in terms of accreditation, that you educate everyone from the ground up. Okay, and then once you're 200-hour qualified, so you're a safe teacher, you understand the core poses, the alignment of those, the anatomy, then you can go off and specialize in other subjects afterwards. Okay, but you will experience all of those styles so that when you come away from the training, you have an idea of what the different styles of yoga are. We'll look at contraindications. So that's things like injuries and illness and how to modify for them. Obviously, we cover meditation, pranayama, which is your breathing techniques, the history of yoga, people of yoga, yoga philosophy, and then core texts like the Gita, the sutras, the Eight-Limbed Path. We also look at the more science side of yoga, like things like frequency and Om. The stress process is something that we cover in quite a lot of depth. So human psychology, but also what happens from a chemical perspective to our body and our health, and how yoga can help with that. All of that stuff is really helpful because it makes yoga very grounded. And in today's age, there is a lot of yoga around, but there are obviously still people who think that maybe it's a little bit woo-woo or that there's no science behind it. And so if you learn the science, and that gives you really good way to be able to communicate in your teaching to help people understand the benefits of the practice. So something that I also do as well as teaching yoga is teach corporates. And so I'm a corporate wellness consultant for lots of different corporate clients. And partly that is because I always explain the science behind why it works. And that makes your teaching very grounded, and that makes it very accessible. And that's, in my opinion, what you want, really. You want to, as a good teacher, you want to be able to communicate quite complex subjects really simply and in a way that is so down to earth that everybody understands it, and so that they come on the journey. So we will explain that science to you to make it really relatable and accessible to everybody. Great. And then you will do some more learning on things like mudras, which are hand positions, chakras, which are your energy centers through your body, drishti, which is your focus with your eyes, sthira sukham, which is about strength and softness and balance, and understanding how balance in the body, if you are in dis-ease, so you're out of balance, then your body will show you through disease. And it communicates that way. So we look at a health system which is holistic, so trying to bring our body back into balance. So we listen to the whisper and then don't wait for the shout of like bigger illnesses. And we learn how to keep ourselves well, and also give other people the tools to keep themselves well through understanding balance. Ayurveda is a big part of that, which is something that we also cover. And lots more. So, in 200 hours, there's a lot of content that you will cover, both in terms of, science, but also psychology, but also the yoga practice itself. So it's a really rich course. You will learn so much and gain so many skills, which are transferable in so many ways. Brilliant. So let's have a look at course styles. So by course styles, what I mean is the difference between an in-person training and an online training. So essentially, we used to do just in-person trainings like everybody else. Online trainings didn't exist. And then obviously COVID happened and we had to adapt. So let's go through our in-person trainings to start with. So in-person trainings are intensive. So you cover your 200 hours in under 20 days, okay, which is usually set out as 1 week, a weekend, and then another week. All right. Why we do it like that is so that you don't have to take so many days annual leave if you're at work. So you're literally just taking the 5 days from the first week and the 5 days from the second week. So you've got 10 days. But also the research shows that intensive learning is the most successful way to learn for most people. So obviously you can spread those 200 hours differently, and some courses would offer 6-month trainings, a year training, where you just maybe attend a couple of days throughout the year. But what we found with that is that because you're not immersed in the environment, you don't often absorb the information. And there's a lot of information, as well as you do when you are immersed in a training, an intensive training for those 2 solid weeks. Okay. And we've tried both, and definitely the intensive training tends to work better. So a typical day of one of those in-person intensive trainings looks like a 7:45 arrival for an 8 o'clock start. So it's early. It's at the studio in Worcester. So that's where our studio is based. And then you do a meditation and a check-in. Okay, so you'll get really good at these emotional check-ins, which are really important. So in order for us to reconnect our body and our mind back together, we need to spend time being with ourselves and understand, how do we personally feel? Okay, a lot of the time we're so busy in our lives, our body and our mind become separate. And that means that we disconnect and we aren't actually clear on how we feel, and importantly, what it is that we need. And it's only when we're clear on what we need that we can bring ourselves back into balance and into health, both mentally and physically. So we start with that check-in, and then we usually do an early morning yoga class, okay, led by a teacher. So you're practicing, then you'd have a break, and then we do our theory or more practice, depending on what we need to cover that day. You'd have lunch, you do more theory and practice, a break, and then restorative towards the end in the evening to replenish your energy levels and let everything absorb, and then a meditation and check out. So very simple. And I should say as well, if at any point in the day you need to rest, you rest. We have had people do our trainings who are going through chemotherapy, cancer treatment, lots of different illnesses or injuries. what I'm so passionate about in these trainings is making the training accessible to everybody. So you don't have to be super fit, you don't have to be able to do lots of fancy yoga poses. You just need to be passionate about yoga and learning and doing something for yourself and learning the tools to help other people. So if you need to rest, if you need to sit out of a class and just observe every now and then, it's absolutely fine. Yeah. So take the pressure off, and we have to kind of relearn a new way of being, which is listening to ourselves and what we truly need rather than just doing what we're told all the time, which is kind of how we're often brought up. So it sounds quite intensive, but it can also be relaxing. I mean, you want it to be like a retreat for you, not a boot camp, right? So that's a kind of typical day. And then our online trainings. Okay, so these are obviously newer. These came about since COVID. We've been doing them for a couple of years now, but they've been hugely successful. And actually, it's been amazing to make this type of program, again, accessible to groups of people who just wouldn't be able to do 20 days intensive in person. Whether you're a carer, whether you're a mum, whether you work full time and, you just can't do it, but you're desperate to learn more about yoga, or even just get a qualification to create a lifestyle that works better for you. So the beauty of the online training is that you can still do that, but you don't have to, sacrifice 20 days to do it. You can do it in your own time. So essentially, the online trainings mirror the in-person trainings, right? So every theory, every lecture that we would do in an in-person training, I've done, or the guest teachers, the specialist teachers who would usually come into the in-person training have recorded all their content, and then we've uploaded it to a learning platform. And we've obviously uploaded lots of different yoga classes as well, which you can practice, loads of different meditations, loads of different pranayama techniques, all different styles of yoga. Everything that we would do on the in-person training, we have recorded and uploaded to the online training. So the content is exactly the same. Obviously, the style of learning is completely different. So you're not going to be in person with a group of people. You're going to be at home or wherever it is that you're doing your learning, and it's flexible learning. It's self-paced. So you could just do an hour at a time, just watching, the odd lecture, doing the odd practice. Or if you wanted, you could make it an intensive process for yourself. It's self-paced. So on our online training at the moment, we have around 25 to 30 people doing their online training. And we have a lovely group where everybody chats and shares information and offers advice, and they are really well connected. So even though they don't have that in-person connection, there is still an amazing connection within that group, loads of support. They practice, teach together. Some people keep themselves, absolutely fine too. Some people have been on the training for over a year, because although you can qualify in 6 months, maybe life got busy and they just needed more time to complete their training. Other people get it done in 6 months, and just do all the live calls at once and then take their exams, and then they're complete. So you can really take as long as you like, or get it done as quickly as you like. And it's designed to work around, you and a busy life. So the content is the same, the styles are different. So these are our course dates. Okay. So the next in-person training that's coming up 2023 is through October and November. So you can see, just like I mentioned before, you have that intensive first week, so from the 14th of October to the 22nd. Then you have a weekend that you attend, and then you have the second intensive week, and that's it then. So then you're qualified in like 2 weeks. So it's an amazing process, and a quick way, obviously, to get qualified as a yoga teacher. It is intense, so be ready for that. Make sure that you rest beforehand and you clear your evenings. And then the online training is slightly different. So the online training is, as I said, self-paced, which means that it's constantly rolling. Okay. So you don't have to start at call 1 and you don't have to finish at call 12. People join all the way throughout the year. And the reason that that's possible is because the topics are modular. So for example, you can see call 3, the history of yoga, okay, and philosophy, or call 5 would be yoga science, or call 7 would be the self-discovery and psychology. Call 9 is anatomy. So you don't have to do those in a certain order. So if you joined the course and the call that was coming up was yoga science, that would be the first thing that you start with. And then you would just cycle through and you could do the history of philosophy of yoga last, right? So you can join at any time. Obviously, there's a course introduction, and obviously there is, an exam to take. So you would all these calls are recorded, so you could just go back and watch if you wanted to catch up on the intro first. And you take your exam whenever you're ready. Okay, so, and I know exam always makes people go, oh, panic. But part of what we're doing in this training actually is kind of creating a new way of being in terms of living and coming out of fear and coming into feeling safe. And that's when our body is in good health, right? So we relearn like processes in terms of exam process, etc. So this is all designed for you to enjoy it and to make you feel safe, not to stress you out. So the exam is we have to do one, right? Because it's a way for us to qualify you and to make sure that you're safe, and therefore you get insured. So be irresponsible not to do that. But we do have the exam available online for you to see from day one. So the moment you sign up to the course and I give you your logins, you can scroll down and you can see it. It's an open scene exam, okay? So you're going to get no surprises and you can practice that as many times as you like. It's a multiple choice quiz. And so you'll be very ready to go whenever you decide to take it. So that's the written exam, okay? And then you have your practical exam. So obviously we need to see that you are a safe and effective teacher. And all that is you taking a recording of yourself teaching. Okay, so we ask for a minimum of 10 minutes. It can be more, of course, but we will see within that time whether you have learnt your alignment, whether you're teaching an effective class, whether you are safe in your teaching. So all the teaching criteria, and I'll send you all of those nearer the time to your exam so that you know exactly what you're teaching to. And then we ask for over 60% on both of those to pass. And if for any reason that doesn't happen, you're having an off day or it just doesn't work out, it really does not matter. You just do it again because this is a rolling course. So you can do it as many times as you like until you're ready. And every time you submit one of your videos of you teaching, we'll either just write you a load of feedback and send it back, and then you can try again, or you'll sail through, which most people do. So, we're not expecting you to be like gymnasts and be able to do any kind of poses. You're actually not doing poses when you're teaching. We're just asking that you're safe and effective. Okay, so that it's not as scary as we can sometimes make it in our minds. It's really, really possible. So that's an idea of how both of the trainings work in terms of dates and a little bit about the exam process. All right, that's obviously for the online training. So the exam process for an in-person training is with us in person, very similar. You just teach the room for 10 minutes each and then we give you feedback. All right, and you can also take that again, no problem. So this is for the online training, this is what your portal would look like. All right, so it's done via Teachable, really simple. As I say, as soon as you sign up, as soon as I've got your deposit in your application, then I reply with your login details, and then you just start working your way through the content. It's such a lovely platform. You can just literally just start each section, watch the video, download PDFs, which has got lots of lovely questions to help you reflect on the content. You could even make a nice, people make, print them off and make a lovely folder of all of your learnings. And also with the online training, you get access to our live recorded studio classes. So the benefit of doing a teacher training with us is that we do have a yoga studio. And so what we do since COVID is all of the classes that we teach during the day, which is kind of all day, every day at our yoga studio, we live stream those classes. So you can see these little cameras next to the schedule. This is on the website. All of those are recorded, so you'll get unlimited membership to the studio. Either you can come in person, you're very, very welcome, and that's a great way to practice the sequence, or if you're further afield, then you can join those classes online. So it's a lovely benefit, really. It's not something that other trainings offer, especially if they don't have a studio, but I don't know that anybody else offers it for free, because it's a 12-month membership, right? Which is usually priced around £70 a month. So that's all included in the cost of your training. And then if most people kind of say to me, oh, I'm really stuck between choosing whether I do an in-person training or whether I do an online training. So what we've created is this hybrid version of the training. And so what that is, it is the online training, but you have the opportunity to meet up with people in person. Okay, so we have these sessions throughout the year, and it's basically one a month that you can turn up for a couple of hours and be together with your group, but also with a teacher, so that they can help you with kind of hands-on alignment, hands-on feedback, anything that you need support with. You just tell them in those sessions and they will help you. So you connect with your group, you know, which is lovely because you'll have been talking to each other for ages, and then to meet up in person is really, really nice. And then you do get that hands-on assistance from an experienced teacher. These are optional, okay, so you don't have to attend all of them by any means, but they're there if you want to, which can be great. All right. FAQs, so let's just run through some questions that people really commonly ask. Is there pre-course work or homework? So there's a reading list, okay, which is basically just the core texts and some additional texts that we discuss that often come up in the training, which are recommended. Your 200-hour training, as I say, is the first building block, and you have the rest of your life to deep dive into yoga books. We're not asking you to complete a reading list. We're just saying that the more you can do, the better for your own knowledge. But a lot of people sign up late and don't have time to do anything. That's fine too. We cover all of the core texts that you need to know in the course content. So if you're doing in-person training, we ask for 200 words, just explaining how the text made you feel. So 2 of them, 2 core texts. And really that's just so that it helps us get to know you, so that when you turn up to the training, we have a little bit of an insight into you and how you think and feel. But again, people have not done that, and that's fine too. We discuss, and then you can come back and discuss when you have done some reading. So there's no great pressure or threat. And then a course textbook. Yes, there is a really chunky course textbook that you'll get on the in-person training that is available to download as a PDF on the online training. So, and if you for any reason don't want to learn through the PDF and you need a hard copy of the course book, then please let me know if you're signing up to the online training, and I can get one to you if you like that. Some people prefer not to. Some people want one, so that's fine. You just let me know. What will you need? So this is for your in-person training. We have all the equipment you need, so you don't need to go out and buy a load of yoga kit. We've got all the equipment. You just need a journal to take your notes, and then snacks and layers and things like that. Obviously, if you're doing the online training, then you will need to get your own kit, which basically looks like a yoga mat, and then a brick, which is kind of the brick-shaped block, and then a block, which is the longer one. Okay. And there's lots of other stuff that you could use and basically learn how to modify and adapt poses in yourself, so that you have an understanding how to do that with other people, things like straps and bolsters and all sorts. But you don't need to worry too much about that. The exam, we've spoken about how many people are on each training. So in the in-person training, no less than 5, no more than 15. Online training is obviously different because there isn't maximum capacity in the room. But what I would reassure you is that even on the online trainings, because all the calls are recorded, a lot of people don't turn up to the live calls, okay, which is fine, that's their prerogative. The live calls are brilliant because they give you an opportunity to ask questions and to obviously connect with your group. But it means that if there aren't that many people on the call, then you've got loads of time for you to basically ask what you need. The calls are never, even though we've got like 30 people on the training, we've always got maybe like 5 to 10 people on the calls. There's still loads of space for you, which I think is important, to have the space to be heard. What if you have to miss a day? So of the in-person training, that's a lot easier now because we have the online portal. So if you sign up to the in-person training, you also get full access to all of the online content. And that's just a bonus really. And it means that if you do have to miss a day, then you can catch that up. We ask that you don't miss more than really 3 to 4 days. It's hard to then complete the content of an in-person training. If you had to miss that many days, you'd be better off to do the online training and then maybe do the hybrid meetings. But we like to keep the in-person as an intensive and as a really close group. So it does mean that we do need that attendance. Do you require a certain level of physical practice? No. Okay, we've spoken about that. So I did my yoga teacher training after my 30-day trial at a yoga studio. And I was brand new to yoga. So I really did not know the names of lots of poses. And yeah, I didn't know much really. But if I hadn't been allowed to do that training because of that, I'm not sure I ever would have done it again. I did it shortly after my father passed away. And I was trying to leave my corporate job. And I don't know if that window would have opened up again. So I feel really passionately about making this course accessible to everybody, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be. If we're good teachers, then we can teach anybody. We give you the tools to learn. So no, you don't have to be doing any kind of fancy yoga poses. And actually, as a yoga teacher, I've mentioned, like, when we were taught yoga, they took our mats away. We weren't allowed to demonstrate poses because you have to use your language and you have to be looking at your students, not just in your own practice. So it doesn't really matter how good you are at yoga. It just matters how good you are at teaching it. And we'll teach you how to do that. So no, you don't need a certain level of physical practice. Accommodation is not included in the price of the training, but we do have recommendations if you want to stay nearby. And parking, yes, we have that for the in-person training. Okay, so those are some kind of common questions. I guess other questions are like, what if I don't know if I want to teach yoga? Again, really common. You don't have to know if you want to teach yoga, and actually it will probably change. You might start off and go, no, never. And then you're like, I can't wait to teach. Or you might say, I can't wait to teach. And then you get through your training and you're like, do you know what? I just want to keep this for me for now. And at some point in my life, I might teach it. Everybody, things change as you learn and as you grow and as your life changes. So, yeah, you'll just have the option to teach anywhere in the world if you want to, but by no means does that mean that you have to. You might just do it for you, something for you. Any other questions that you have, I'm sure there's loads, just email me, call me, and we can chat them through. Next steps. So here's the cost. So in-person training is 2,500. And I know certainly when I looked at that, when I was like a student doing mine, that was a huge amount of money to me. But it's 200 hours, right? So that ends up being like 20 quid an hour or whatever it is, less if it's an online training. And the thing is that the skills that you're going to learn for the rest of your life are completely invaluable. And especially if you do end up teaching regularly, you really quickly pay that back. So it's worth bearing that in mind, but also to make it as accessible as possible. What I tend to offer, especially during COVID and now, I mean, things are so difficult for people financially, basically impossible. We offer flexible deposits and flexible payment plans. So if you need to do a lower deposit on application, that's also okay. And then depending on what's remaining to pay for the rest of the training, we can then split that over 12 months. If you have extenuating circumstances like illness or retirement or something, anything that's going on, let me know and we'll see if we can extend the 12-month plan for you. So basically what we do is we just agree a payment plan. I make a note of it on your account, and then we just track it as you go through. Okay, so it's all possible. You just need to communicate and let me know what it is that you need to make it possible for you. So then you would submit your application. So you choose the training you want to do, you submit your application, which is on the website, but there's also a button in the PDF that you can press. Okay, or just email me and I'll send you the form. And the application is not for you to try and tell me how good you are at yoga. Again, it's just for us to get to know you, but also to check medical grounds, just to make sure that it is actually safe for us to accept you on a training. And that's really all it's about, just kind of insurance and making sure that it's manageable for you. As I say, we've had people do these trainings who are going through serious medical treatment, so it's unlikely that it wouldn't be appropriate, but we just need to know where you're at. So once we've got that information, then I can reply to you and check that you have transferred your deposit, and then set up your payment plan, and then I'll send you all of your details, whether that's for in-person or your online training. We do ask for deposit on application. You can imagine we spend quite a lot of time reading through applications, and sometimes, people just tend to fire off a load of applications and maybe they're not actually committed to the training. So we ask for deposit on application to make sure that we're making good use of our time by reading through your application. If for any reason you're not well enough to do the training, then obviously your deposit is returned to you. So um, that's the process. Okay. So choosing your style of training and then sending through your application with deposit and setting up your payment plan, and then you are good to go. All right. So that's everything from this presentation. But as I say, you can book a one-to-one call with me. You can join another group call if you want to. But that should be a lot of what you need to know. And as I say, if you've got any questions, just drop me an email. I'll put my email on the screen here. Or give me a call, which you can book via the website. And I really hope to speak to you soon. All right, everyone, take care. Thank you.